What are you making?
I'm mixing up a stew to give corporate a different view. Have a taste. Welcome to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger, and today on the menu is dating. We're no longer in February, the month of love. However, we still need to talk about the capital LOVE. Why? Because you have a very important decision to make. If you're going to enter the corporate world, you have to decide whether or not you're going to be open to dating your coworkers. Can you date your coworkers? Just kidding. I'm not the date police out here. I'm not going to sit here and lecture you like a parent, but we do have to talk about this. This is something that is a fundamental factor of your life in corporate America. Will you or will you not choose to date your coworkers? Before we even get started, I'll tell you, yes, you can absolutely date your coworkers. We'll get into why and what that means, but I'm not here to tell you you can't do that. We're more so going to talk about what that means and you consciously making that choice of whether or not you're going to do it. So, as we always do, let's look at the dictionary. According to the Merriam-Webster, the definition of dating as a verb is 1, to determine the period of time to which something belongs, to determine the date. 2, to record the time of the execution or making of, mark with the date. 3, to mark with characteristics typically of a particular period, to show up plainly the age of. 4, to make a usually romantic social arrangement to meet with, to have a date with. Obviously, we're talking about number 4. The key word here is romantic. We're adults here. This isn't an explicit channel, so I'm not going to say the words, but it's romantic. We're passing that threshold from friend to, in quotes, friend, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever terminology you want to use to someone who you have a romantic relationship with. So we need to get into the very first takeaway because we need to set some ground rules. First takeaway is we are adults. This is no longer your childhood. We are adults. If you are a teenager prior to the age of 18 right now listening to this podcast and you're in corporate America right now, I'm just going to, time out. Let's blow the whistle. This episode's not for you. Go skip to the next episode. I'm mainly talking to the adults here. I'm not even getting, no, if you're under the age of 18, go to the next. No, I'm sorry. You can't go to Thursday's episode. Go to next week's episode. Just skip this one. This is an adult conversation. We need to be adults here. And the funny part is, it kind of makes sense. If we think about where people find their spouses and the people they date, before 18, we found those people either in school, at some type of social gathering, or through people, like your friend introduced you to someone or someone you know introduced you to someone. As you got older and you graduated and you crossed that threshold into adulthood. Yes, we did go to college, so I'll give you that for those people that are in college. But once you enter the corporate workforce and you're fully graduated, you don't have the school anymore. That's not what you're doing full time. You're working full time. So in retrospect, school was just replaced by work. The social gatherings are still there. You still meet people from the social gathering. You still meet people through friends. The two main differences between then and now is for everybody, work replaced school on a normal basis. We're not going to get into if you dropped out or no. From a full-time standpoint of your time, you were in school or school-related activity all day. Now you're in corporate America. Corporate America is taking a lot of your time. So that naturally was a direct replacement. The other one has really grown over, I would say, the last 10, 15 years, and that's dating apps. A lot of people find their spouse with apps. Totally fine. But we're going to talk about it in the workforce. We're going to talk about dating in the workforce. And the first thing to know is that we are adults. Therefore, you're going to have If you choose to have romantic relationships in the workplace, it's going to be adult relationships. What do I mean by that? I mean that not all of your dating is going to be contributing to a long-term relationship. Some dating is casual. Some dating is super casual. If you catch my drift there, I'm hoping you're following. If you're not following, you will when you get older. That's the best way I could put that. You will when you get older. But from a romantic standpoint, some of those relationships will be casual and some will actually have more meaning and drive to something deeper and possibly end up spouse, parent of future children. I've seen a lot of relationships play both fields. One super successful, and those people ended up getting together and starting a family. And then the other of it ended horribly and sometimes publicly, right? But we're adults here and we have to treat our relationships a little bit more seriously because we don't have the time to play games. So you got to decide, are you going to enter this world or are you not? It's very similar to whether or not you're willing to mix your foods. For a certain group of listeners, you'll understand this analogy where it's, do you let your collard green juice touch your cornbread? That is like a hard line. Some people, oh yeah, absolutely. They have to touch. And then others, no, I need to keep them completely separate. Do you put pineapple on your pizza? Some people, that is a absolutely not. Others, yes, could, possibly. Do you mix your eggs and your grits? You can do this with any sort of food. Do you mix foods or do you keep them separate? And it's not a black and white thing. It's a tolerance level. Don't think of it as a threshold of like yes or no. It's more of a spectrum of tolerance. And there is a point, a control point in which you're either on the yes side or on the no side. But it's a threshold. Some people may try it once and say from that experience, hated it, will never date in the office again. Other people will start off and say, I would never do this. And then they find someone and they're like, oh, I have to try. There are, I do have to say this, there are 8 billion people in the world. There are a lot of people in the world. And you can meet a lot of people. That also means there are a lot of beautiful people in the world, including you listening to this now. I know I don't see you. I'm not talking directly to you, but I know as a human, you are beautiful. 8 billion beautiful people in the world. Obviously, if you see someone and you want to date them, go for it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm not here to tell you don't do it. I'm here to tell you, understand what you're going to put yourself through. And the first ground rule that we have to get on is that this isn't high school. This isn't high school crushes and high school type relationships. This is work and mixing work and play, pretty much. It's a different type of relationship bonding that everyone is consciously aware of when they attempt to do it. Some people are really, really good at, hey, I will date a colleague, but because we are in 2 different divisions or 2 different departments in this very large company, we never interact, so it's totally okay. Some people will choose not to do that, even if they are very far apart in the company, because they don't want to have a partner that knows about their work. It's kind of weird for some people to come home, have a conversation about work, and the other person knows exactly what you're talking about because they worked on something similar. And it's like, that's almost like dating myself. Mixed bag. It depends what you like and depends what you're into. The other part of it too is if you get into a romantic relationship and it's unsuccessful, back in high school, you'll see that person in school at work, you could possibly see that person at work. The point is that makes it different from school and work. School, you're gaining education. Work, you're getting money. Don't play with your money. don't play with your money, right? Don't risk what you're doing outside the office to what's in the office. And that's the whole point of laying the ground rules, that we have to be adults. If you're going to pass that control point and be on the side of, yes, I choose to date my colleagues, just know that if it's unsuccessful, you may have to see that person. You may even have to work with that person depending on how close to your working circle you decided to date. And you're making money, so it's not an optional thing. It's not like school where you can attempt to avoid them if you don't have the same class, or, hey, I'm going to go sit at the desk on the other side of the room away from them so I don't have to see them. No, that you got to work. You're getting your own company time, not on your time. If it requires you to interact with that person, you got to do it. You got to be adult about it. And it can be hard sometimes, but it could be great. Again, I mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people who had successful relationships by dating their colleagues. You absolutely could have a very successful relationship and start a family with someone in the office. I'm going to do one disclaimer, though. I'm not the dating police here. You can have all the fun you want. Just don't be stupid. Like, please don't be stupid. Again, this is work. You're going to be in corporate. There are a lot of companies that have rules on dating. Like, obviously, you can't date your boss sort of thing in a lot of companies. And don't put yourself in a position where you're compromising your employment for your romantic relationship. If you're one of the listeners that's like, I have to do it because of the position I'm in, that should be a very, 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 very small percentage of the people listening. The majority shouldn't even be close. And don't be stupid about it. Don't be stupid. There is code of conduct. There is workplace policies that are in place that have rules to cover this. Please do not compromise your financials and your money because you're not being smart with the acts within your romantic relationships. Okay? So, ground rules, first key takeaway, we're adults here. Let's be adult about it. The second takeaway is that there is a risk and opportunity here. Total risk and opportunity here. There is a saying that people say, reason for a season. Definitely applies here if you decide to date in the office. If you date a colleague, it could just be for a season. And those short-lived relationships hold a certain amount of risk. Just like in high school, when you date someone, and even if you don't go public and tell everyone, a lot of people will catch on. People will find out. They'll know what's going on. And there will be a difference in their, not necessarily their treatment of you, but there is a difference. You notice when people change when they're interacting with you because they know information or they're trying to pry for information. The same thing can happen in the workplace where you decide that you want to date someone low-key under the radar. People are bound to find out. There might be some gossip, and it could be a little bit different of treatment. And you have to be prepared for that. There's always a little bit of risk, no matter what you do when you decide to mix those. Just like with your food. If you put pineapple on your pizza, there are people out there that will severely judge you and think, oh my God, you're the worst person ever putting pineapple on your pizza. And then there's some people that snicker about it. And then there's some people that's laissez-faire. Oh, you're one of those. Okay. And it's not something that we need to react to. It's something you just have to be aware of. People are very judgmental, and the sensitivity of the world is so high today that it's very easy to offend, very easy to be judged. Dating in the office is one of those that people pay attention to. The judgment is various. It depends on a lot of different factors, you as a person, the other person as a person, but it is something that people notice and may make them react. If you decide to be a Glenn Quagmire and have as much fun as you desire, obviously you will have a certain reputation, and seeing you with a colleague may negatively influence that colleague's reputation, despite the fact that all they're doing is dating you. But you know how in high school there were cliques, there was rumors, and people acted like childs. Well, despite being adults, there's still a lot of childness that goes around. As you get older, a little bit more seasoned, I can't really say it dies down fully. There's a lot of romantic relationships that go around, and you can either choose to be adult about them as you either interact with them yourselves or spectate them or not. I mean, that there's just some companies are just so big, you're going to get that whole spectrum of people that will be the, oh my God, you put pineapple on pizza, like you're so gross, versus the people that's just like, yeah, I guess if you're that type of person, right, you could deal with all different types of personalities. So there's always a risk with that. In addition, when you do engage in dating, you are mixing your professional and personal life. You know, do you, there's a saying that I can't say because it has a curse word in it, but do you mix that? Do you really mix work and life? Do you really take work home like that? Again, some people date people in different divisions and different departments so that they can kind of alleviate some of that risk and deal with someone that they would normally never see on a day-to-day while they're working. Doesn't really fully remove you from that risk, though. You can date someone in a total different department, but the risk of how other people are going to react and whether or not they're going to be adult about it is still there. And there's a personal risk on yourself as well. I mean, you are integrating your financial life with your romantic life. Letting go may not be as easy when you talk about going your separate ways. There may be a couple more steps that are involved in order to do that. Side note, while we're on the subject of that, if you're new to a company, make sure before you decide to date someone that you look up if they have any family in the company. You got to be very careful of that. I work at a very large company, and it's feedback that I give to mentees, not specifically related to dating, but in general, when they want to meet someone, whether it's to network with them or even ask them out, search their last name, try to see if they have any family there, because there are some companies that are so big, and work being one of the natural places that people meet their loved ones, bound to be related people in the company, bound to be either brother, brother-in-law, mother-in-law, actual mother or father, siblings, children, cousins, uncles. You want to do your history and your research on the person before you get involved. You don't want to be in a situation where, hey, I thought this person was beautiful, asked them out, it didn't go well, it was kind of ugly, and now I'm finding out in the fallout that I was dating the vice president's child. Now, I have this glass ceiling on my career, unintentional, unrelated to work and performance, but happens in life because you just mess with the vice president's child. I mean, it's just going to happen in life, right? So make sure you mitigate some of that risk by doing your research, doing your homework, making sure that you're putting yourself in a position that you know to date someone and then find out after the fact, like, oh, you are the CEO's nephew. That's concerning, right? Or you are the president's daughter. Yikes, right? You want to make sure that you're prepared for certain situations and that you accept that. Again, we're adults here. If you walk into a party and they have pineapple on their pizza, you choose to accept it or you choose not to. But if you are one of those people that's like, I don't like that and I absolutely hate that, and you know that prior to going to the party, that makes you much more prepared than walking in and seeing it. And it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I know pineapple on pizza, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but certain people, it is a big deal. And like I said, it's a threshold of whether or not you're looking or you're willing to date your colleagues. If you are, go for it. If you aren't, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong here. Just be an adult and don't be stupid about it. Also, if you haven't done it before and you are looking to enter that world, I myself have never done that. When we get to the table, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I can't give you a personal recollection of what that seems like. I can only give you feedback based off of conversations I had with people that do it. The way I see it, though, personally, and from the feedback I've gotten, it's again, work is a replacement of school as far as places that you meet people to date. As long as you're not stupid about it, it should be completely normal. There was a time before COVID that there were so many happy hours. Happy hours used to be very, very, very frequent. And not because, the disclaimer, we're not alcoholics, like we're not drunks, but it was a great way to celebrate the workday, network, talk to people, and meet people that you were interested in and talk and have that conversation. I know a couple people that actually have used happy hours in order to get to know someone that they eventually started dating. So that those opportunities aren't as frequent, but they still happen. And as we talked about in previous episodes, those in-person opportunities, definitely take them. I don't, if someone has a story out there of meeting their spouse virtually from some work event and they ended up starting a family with that person after only meeting them virtually, please let me know. Send me a text or message me. I would be very curious. I would love to interview you and understand that story. I know dating apps exist, but dating apps are meant as a medium to set up some level of in-person interaction. So if you only met someone virtually and you were able to date them and ended up starting a family with them, that's a pretty good story there. But for those of you that haven't passed that threshold and looking to pass it should be just like when you were in school or any other social interaction, or when a friend introduces you to their friend or someone that you want to date. Just be natural about it and don't make it to anything more than it is. However, just consciously understand the risk that you're doing. It's not a thing of, hey, I want to date one of my coworkers and I'm nervous about it. So therefore, let me pull out a paper and pen and we're going to write out all the pros and cons and figure out if this is the right decision. No. Follow your heart. If your heart is telling you that you want to pursue this person and get to know this person a little bit more, go do that. Go do that. Just be smart about it. Don't date someone else's spouse. Don't date someone that will compromise your work policies. Don't date someone that would compromise your employment, and and don't date someone that will compromise your mental health as well. Work is already stressful enough. If it's going to add more stress to you, don't do it as well. It is my podcast recommendation. I am no therapist. I am not your coach, but that's my recommendation for you if you decide to go into that world. And for those people that decide I will never do this, good. I mean, you just don't have to deal with that risk. And I'm one of those people that I was not going to enter that world. So I don't have the risk. For the people that's been living in it, done it plenty of times, or at least, I mean, once you've done it one time, you've dealt with it. So from one time to too many, if you're in that world, congratulations. I mean, I hope it worked out for you. I hope you found a future spouse to make a family with, or that you had fun, right? Not everything is about reaching that finish line of starting a family. For some people, that's not a finish line. For some people, they were just looking for a season. I hope you had fun. The reason that I want to bring those people up is to make sure that I go back to the people that want to pass that control point and date. Those are good people to lean on. Those are good people to talk to. Anyone that successfully or unsuccessfully dated in the workplace are very good people to get advice from and help you understand the inner workings of it and whether or not you should pursue it. And hey, they may even have some background on the person that you're actually interested in. They will help you with your risk assessment to know whether or not you should. So, we're adults and understand the risk. The last takeaway I do want to talk about, we live at an interesting time. This phrase is not new. It has recirculated very, very, very strongly over the last 5 years. And it is something that we need to talk about. And this is the term work spouse. This is not a romantic relationship. And it's also not necessarily a proclaimed title. It's not a publicly given title, but it is something we should talk about because I want to make sure you keep those separate. You have your romantic relationships, even if it's just for seasonal fun, and you have on the other side a work spouse. The work spouse relationship is one that I actually recommend that you have. I do recommend that you have a work spouse, but it's fully platonic. It's not a romantic relationship. It is someone that you're able to talk to and someone that you're able to trust. It's your confidant. And I highly recommend that everyone has that for one specific reason. It's going to sound like counterintuitive to something we talked about earlier, but in truth, I mean, it really isn't. I mentioned earlier that there are people on the spectrum that choose not to date colleagues because they don't want to mix work and home. They don't want to come home and be able to talk to someone that knows what they're talking about and works what they're talking about. But, hear me out, they don't want to bring that home. They want to keep it at work. So, it's nice to have someone that you can confide in about those conversations you want to have related to work, and they know and they work what you're talking about, and you feel comfortable talking to this person, you trust this person, you know that it's a conversation that would only stay between you two, and you get everything off your chest, you get it off your shoulders, and you go home and you don't even have to worry about it anymore. That is a great relationship to have. One of the critical aspects of building relationships in corporate America is building that circle of trust. You can't trust everyone, despite if you're at a small company and maybe tens of people, but if you're at a larger company, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of people that you interact with, You can't sit here and say, I trust everyone that I meet. You can't trust everyone that you meet, and you can't confide in everyone as well. You got to keep that circle really, really, really tight. So, from my opinion and my perspective, the concept of a work spouse is good to have because it allows you to be able to really release a lot of the thoughts, the inner workings of your brain in a confidential manner, but also a trusted manner to get feedback on as well and be able to really leave all of that at work. Does that mean you can't know the work spouse outside of the workplace? No, not at all. But it is someone that you work with, works at the same company as you. Uh, they use the term spouse because it's normally someone of not your gender. Again, it's not a proclaimed title where you go around like, oh, yeah, such and such, that's my work spouse. You don't do that. You don't do that. But to have someone that you confide in, and they know that, they're aware of that like, hey, because it's usually a two-way relationship. I mean, it's like dating. I mean, you're dating this person and they're dating you back. The work spouse relationship on the same level, where if you're someone's work spouse, they are your work spouse too. It's a two-way relationship. Happens both ways. And you don't have multiple of these people. It's one of one. Keep that circle small. That circle of trust, the people that you confide in, keep it tight. We don't want to be telling everyone our business. I know we get excited when we reach certain achievements, we reach certain milestones in our career. That's great. My advice to you, that circle of trust, keep it small. Don't let them have leaks. One of the funniest things that I've ever been a part of are leaks when information gets out and leadership's like, well, there was only 4 people that knew that information. So we know, we know it's one of these 4 people that leaked this information, and we'll bring them back into the room and somebody's getting in trouble. That's sort of the same thing that you should have too, where if something gets out that you didn't want to, you should be able to identify in one hand who you need to go back to figure out what happened. You don't want to be confiding in 30 people. That's way too much, way too many communication channels, way too much information out there. If you ever played the game of telephone when you were younger, information does not get better as it transfers channels. It gets worse, it gets diluted, gets changed, and by the time it actually gets announced publicly, the message is totally different than what initially came in. So keep that circle really, really small. And in that circle, it's definitely okay to have a work spouse. Completely platonic relationship, something good to have, someone good to confide in to keep that information within the workplace. Now, if you are someone that will date colleagues, should you also have a work spouse? That's a great question. Never really dove into that. If you're willing to bring the work home and you have that, I mean, I say why not? In my eyes, it may defeat the purpose, but again, I'm not the dating police. I'm not here to judge. If you want that platonic friend so that you can confide in, but also you don't care who you date, whether it's someone from work, someone from that you met at the bar, or someone that a friend introduced you to. It just worked out that the person you met is someone from work. Absolutely, go for it. At the end of the day, you have to choose. Do you or do you not mix your food? And again, it's on a threshold. It's not necessarily something completely black and white where it's like, I absolutely will not, or I absolutely will. Work is a great place to meet people. There are a lot of, I'm going to say it again, there are a lot of beautiful people in the world. There are. And work is a great way to meet some people. Just keep it professional when you're in the workplace and be smart. I mean, at the end of the day, and we're going to wrap this up. At the end of the day, we are adults here. This is adult relationships and it is adulting. If you are really early in your career and you want to pass that control point and try it out, just know that this isn't childhood relationships. This is real life dating. If you have a broken heart, suck it up. Don't be careful bringing that into the office. This is where you go to make money. Risk. We talked about risk. Be careful of the risk that you decide to take on and do your best to mitigate it. If you can do the research, same way that there's the mantra that women run FBI background checks on you before they date you, you got to kind of do a mild one on your own just so that you can mitigate some of those risks, understand what you're getting yourself into. And all in all, they'll help you decide whether or not you're going to have that type of relationship in your inner circle. Just leave space for a work spouse as well. Those will help you in your inner circle, help you build that really, really tight circle of confidentiality. And again, I'm not I'm not the dating police here. Have fun. Absolutely have fun. If you may end up meeting a fling, or you may end up meeting the future parent of your children. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to tell you, be an adult and be careful. And with that, we'll turn off this stove, take off the thinking apron, and let's just say the dishes will get done later. This topic wasn't a big mess, but if we learned something today, then we know there's a little cleaning up to do. I do want to talk this topic more, maybe trade stories about this soon, like this Thursday soon. I hope to see you there. Thanks for being in the corporate kitchen today. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.